श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। नमः सभाभ्यः सभापतिभ्यश्च वो नमः। वागीशाद्याः सुमनसः सर्वार्थानामुपक्रमे यन्नत्वा कृतकृत्यास्यस्तन्नमामि गजाननम्। शारदा शारदां भोजवदना वदनाम्बुजे सर्वदा सर्वदास्माकं सन्निधिं क्रियात्। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। सत्यज्ञानसुखस्वरूपममलं क्षीराब्धिमध्यस्थितं योगारूढमतिप्रसन्नवदनं भूषासहस्रोज्ज्वलं त्र्यक्षञ्चक्रपिनाकसाभयवरान् बिभ्राणमर्कच्छविं छत्रीभूतफणीन्द्रमिन्दुधवलं लक्ष्मीनृसिंहं भजे। शङ्कारूपेण मच्चित्तं पङ्कीकृतमभूद्यया किङ्करीयस्य सा माया शङ्कराचार्यमाश्रये। प्रह्लादवरदो देवो यो नृसिंहः परो हरिः नृसिंहोपासकन्नित्यन्तनृसिंहगुरुं भजे। श्रीसच्चिदानन्दशिवाभिनव्यनृसिंहभारत्यभिधान्यतीन्द्रान् विद्यानिधीन् मन्त्रनिधीन् सदात्मनिष्ठान् भजे मानवशम्भुरूपान्। सदात्मध्याननिरतं विषयेभ्यः पराङ्मुखं नौमि शास्त्रेषु निष्णातं चन्द्रशेखरभारतीं विवेकिनं महाप्रज्ञं धैर्यौदार्यक्षमानिधिं सदाभिनवपूर्वं तं विद्यातीर्थगुरुं भजे। अज्ञानाञ्जाह्नवीतीर्थं विद्यातीर्थं विवेकिनां सर्वेषां सुखदं भारतीतीर्थमाश्रये। विद्याविनयसम्पन्नं वीतरागं विवेकिनं वन्दे वेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञं विधुशेखरभारतीम्। ममाद्य देवो वटमूलवासी कृपाविशेषात् कृतसन्निधानः ओङ्काररूपामुपदिश्य विद्याम् आविद्यकध्वान्तमपाकरोतु। Namaskaram everyone. With Namaskaram to my Gurus and Jagat Gurus. I have a very big task ahead of me today. It is to summarize Bhagavatpada's Dakshinamoorthy Stotra in the span of about 1 hour. Even if we take 1 hour for each of the shlokas, even if we take 1 hour for each half of the shlokas, I highly doubt we will be able to cover the entire essence of this illustrious stotra. But nonetheless, because however much we say about Dakshinamurti Stotra will not suffice, we might as well talk about it in an hour. Dakshinamurti Stotra is of course a composition of Bhagavatpada, one of the numerous stotras that Bhagavatpada has written. Even among, as we know, Bhagavatpada has several types of compositions. We have his Bhashya Granthas, the Prasthanatraya Bhashyas. We have his Lagu Bhashyas, like those of Vishnu Sahasranama, Trishati. And then of course we have his Prakarana Granthas, some in Gadya, some in Padya form. Right? Some we have Atmajnana Upadesha Vidhi, the latter half of Upadesh Sahasri. These are all in Gadya, prose form. Then some in Padya, Swatmanirupanam, and then Aparokshanubhuti. These kinds of Granthas are in Padya form. And then you have Tattvabodha, things like that are in prose form. And then this aside, you have Devata Stotras, right? We have Bhajagovindam or some Shivamanasa Puja or Devi Aparadhakshamapana Stotra, Shiva Aparadhakshamapana Stotra, Ganesha Bhujanga, Subramanya Bhujanga, Karavalamba, Nrsimha Pancharatna, all of these we have. But even in these Devata Stotras, some Stotras stand out as more Tattva Pradhana than others. For example, in this Dakshinamurti Stotra, there are very few references to, not very few, there are literally no references to Dakshinamurti's form anywhere. The fact that he's sitting under a Vatavriksha, or that he has jatas, or that he has 4 hands, or that he's wearing tiger skin, or that he has Apasmara, the Rakshasa, crushed under his foot. There are no such references to Bhagavan's form anywhere. And in the same way, there are also no references to his mantra. Right? Bhagavatpada actually has 2 other stotras in Dakshinamurti. There is one Upasakanam Yadupasaniyam Upattavasam Vatashakhi Mule. There is one such stotra. And then there is another one, Akshanamurti Varnamala stotra, where Mahyam Medham Dadata Swaha, that mantra, I will not say the whole thing obviously, but each akshara of the mantra comes in the first akshara of each shloka. So that is also there. But unlike that, there is no mention of the Dakshinamurti mantra here, whether it be Medha Dakshinamurti or some other Veena Dakshinamurti. No mention of Dakshinamurti Swarupa or mantra is made in this stotra. This stotra exists for one reason alone, and that is to teach us about Atma, Atma Padartha, Atma Tattva. And there are some other stotras like this, like the Harimide stotra is also very much like this. Lakshmi Nrsimha Pancharatna is also like this. There are several stotras that are less about the Devata. The Devata is just a facade for the actual Atma Tattva to shine through from behind. So this is one such stotra. We read it as 10 shlokas, including the Sarvatmattvamiti Sphutikritamidam, as well as the Bhoram Hamsinalo Nilambara Maharanatho Himamshav Puman as the 10th and 9th shlokas, respectively. But the stotra proper is actually just the first 8. So Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari, then Bijasya Antarivankaraha, then Vishwam Pashyati Karyakaranataya, then you have Yasyeva Spharanam is the third shloka, Nana Chitra Ghatodharastita Mahadepa Prabhavaswaram is the fourth. Deham Pranamapi Indriyanyapi is the fifth. Then you have Rahugrasta Devakirendu Sadrishaha. And seventh is Balyadeshapi Jagradashutatha. Then eighth, the last one is Vishwam Pashyate Karyakaranataya. So in these 8 shlokas, the entire summary of Advaita has been brought out. So there is one Vyakhya, Satmanandayati has written one Vyakhya that in the beginning he very beautifully says Atakhalu Bhagavan Bhashyakaraha. So Bhagavatpada, what he has done in this stotra is Upanishad Amritam. The Upanishad is the Kshirasagara. Right? If you think what did the Devatas do, they took the Kshirasagara, they put the Mandara Parvata in it, they tied a string to it and they churned and they got Amrita. Right? And that Amrita came in a Kalasha. Dhanvantari came, he gave them a Kalasha, that Kalasha had Amrita in it. So what Bhagavad Pada did in the stotra, he says, so the Upanishads, the Vedantas are Akshira Sagara. Bhagavad Pada churned it with Nyaya Mandarena. The mountain that has been put in this as the churning rod is called Nyaya, Tarka, logic. Then having churned it, he got out Atma Tattva or Advaita as the essence, the Amrita that has come out of this Sagara. But obviously, it is a liquid. You can't just pick it up like this. You need to have some storage. So the Kalasha that Bhagavad Pada stored all of this Advaita Jnana in is nothing other than this Dakshinamurti Stotra. So it says Vinyasa Kalasha Bhutam Dakshinamurti Stotram Vidatte. Right? So that is the Dakshinamurti Stotra that Bhagavad Pada has given us. And of course, the essence of Advaita is Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. Right? That same thing, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. This is still half a shloka. Then you have Brahmaiva Jiva Sakalan Jagatcha is one pada. You will fit it all into one pada. Brahmaiva Jiva Sakalan Jagatcha. Brahma is the Jiva and the Jagat. So what this stotra does is it shows aikya between these three, between the Brahma, Jiva, and Jagat. And what is the relationship? And also it throws the Guru into, who is non-different from Ishvara. So what is the relationship between these Bhoktra Jiva, Bhogya Jagat, Bhogaprada Ishvara, Mokshaprada Gurunam Atyanta Aikyam Pradarshayan. Atyanta Abhedam Pradarshayan. Bhagavan, he says. So the Jiva is the Bhokta, he who experiences Sukha and Dukkha in this body. This Jagat is Bhogya, it is what is being experienced by the Jiva. Then you have Bhoga Prada, the Sukha and Dukkha are given by Ishvara, right? Karma is Jada. So although we do have a karma phala balance, we need an Ishvara to arrange those karma phalas, give us some prarabdha, and then set us on our paths, and then make sure that we are getting the karma phala as and when necessary. So the bhoga prada, the person that tells us or assigns when we will have bhoga, sukha, or dukkha is Ishvara. Bhoga prada Ishvara, and then the fourth that they throw in here is moksha prada guru. So freedom from this jagat and bhoga, freedom from that moksha, release, is given by the Guru. So all 4 of these have atyanta abheda. They in nature are none but the same. They're one without a second. So the jiva who experiences this world, the world that is being experienced, Ishvara who assigns us our experiences in terms of sukha and dukkha, and the Guru, who is none other than Ishvara, that gives us the jnana necessary to be released from this cycle of bhoga and this sharira. All of these four things are none but the same. So immediately the second we hear this, obviously we will be confused, because there are spashta viruddha dharmas that we see. Right? Ishvara is sarvajna, I am alpajna. I am, as the jiva know very little, Ishvara knows everything. Ishvara can do everything, I know very little. I am sentient, the Jagat is insentient, right? I am Chaitanyatmaka, the Jagat is Jada. Then also the Guru is older than me, knows more than me. I know less than the Guru, I am younger than the Guru. You do not have to be younger. In Bhagavad Pada's case, he was younger than most of his Sishyas. Sureshwaracharya was much, much older than Bhagavad Pada. So that is not the case. But generally there is a difference, right? Between the Upadesha Karta and the Upadesha Shrota. There is a difference between those two. So between the Jagat, Ishvara, and the Jiva, there are very obvious, clear differences that need to be reconciled before we can understand that these are all the same tattva, that these all are the same Brahman. So Bhagavad Pada in each shloka explores a different facet of this Paramatma, a different facet of the Jagat, different facet of the Jiva, different facet of the Guru, and then ties them together with the strength of Sanskritam. So, what Bhagavad Pada does is, in the fourth Pada, you have Tasmai, Shri Guru Murtaye Namayidam, Shri Dakshinamurtaye. So, this word Tasmai, this Tat is a Sarvanama Shabda, means it's a pronoun. So, there is this Prayoga in Sanskritam called Yat Tat Prayoga. Anyone that knows Sanskrita will be very familiar with it. So, you will have Yat, that which, and then the Tat will be the that part. So, where Ayodhya is, that is there Rama ruled as king, something like that. Or where Sringeri is, or where Rishi Shringa did tapas, there Sharada Pitham exists. So yatra Rishi Shringa Munihi tapaschakara, tatra Sharada Pitha vartate, something like that. So where, there, whom yam ayam Bhagavatpadaha स्थापितवान् सा शारदा शृंगगिरौ वर्तते. So that devata whom Bhagavad installed, that Sharada exists in Sringeri. Or यह ये भारतीतीर्थ महास्वामी करकमल संजाताः ते विधुशेखर भारती स्वामिनः अस्माकं पुरतः विराजन्ते. So he who is produced, or he who is the Shishya of Bharati Tirtha Mahaswami, that Vidhushekhara Bharati Swami exists in front of us today. So in this way, he who, or that which, or that where, there will be one thing that is denoted by what, where, which, who, one of those words. And then in the second half, you will have that, this, he, she, it. You will have something connecting. So the same thing that is talked about by Yat will be talked about, will be referred to by the word Tat. So what Tat does is called Purva Paramarsha. That which has been talked about before, Purvam, Tam Paramrshati, Paramarsham Karoti. So it'll touch from that. So let's say, and also even if you're doing a sentence of shlokas, right? If you have something like Dasharatha Raja, Tasya Putraha Rama, Dasharatha is a king, his son is Rama. His refers to what? His refers to the noun that was talked about immediately prior. So when you say his son is Rama, the he refers to Dasharatha and not to Rama, or and not to Arjuna or Bhima or Hanuman or something like that. It will refer to the noun that was talked about immediately before. Or even if you say Dasharatha ruled in Ayodhya, there Rama was born. Right? There, in that, the there refers to Ayodhya. So in the same way, when you have this Tat Shabda, it will refer to the Yat Shabda or whatever immediately precedes it. Here Bhagavad Pada uses the Yat Shabda. So the way this stotra is structured is, the first two padas will use Yat. The last two padas will use Tat. And most of the time, Yat will refer to something or the other to do with the Jiva or the Jagat. In the second half, the Tat will refer to Ishvara. So by doing that, Bhagavad Pada will show that the Jiva that is talked about in Yat and the Ishvara that is talked about as Tat have to be the same, because Yat and Tat have to have Samanadhikaranya. They have to refer to the same thing. So this is the strength of the Sanskrit Bhasha, of the Sanskrit language that Bhagavad Pada uses and plays on throughout this stotra. For example, you have विश्वं दर्पणदृश्यमाननगरे तुल्यं निजान्तर्गतं पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिरिवोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया. I won't go into a detailed explanation, but generally this is his. He in whose interior this world appears as a city appears inside a mirror. So, in whom the world appears as a city appears in a mirror. Then you say the inside the jiva the jagat is appearing. Then how? Why is it that I'm interacting with the world outside? Maya bahirivodbhutam. It due to the force of Maya, it appears as if it exists outside the jiva, but actually Mai sarvam prakalpitam, it says. So within me, within the jiva, all of this jagat is been arranged. So who is it that is seeing the jagat inside them and is experiencing the jagat inside them, or as though it has come out? It has to be the jiva. It has to be the jiva. Jiva is the only one that experiences the inner jagat as though it were outside. So this yat shabda yasyantaha विश्वं दर्पण दृश्यमान नगरे तुल्य निजांतर्गतं पश्यन् आत्मनि मायया बहिर्वोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यस साक्षात karanat. So that yat shabda has to refer to the jiva. And then when you say tasmai shri guru murtaye, this tat says immediately when you say dakshinamurti here is ishvara. So Dakshinamurti, how does Dakshinamurti mean Ishvara? We will come to. But Dakshinamurti has to be Ishvara. So when you say that Jiva that sees the Jagat inside himself, that is actually inside himself as though it is outside, to that Dakshinamurti I do Namaskara, immediately what happens? The Dakshinamurti and Jiva become one and the same. Right? Tat being Dakshinamurti, Tvam being the Jiva, or Aham being the Jiva, and Brahma being Dakshinamurti, Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi. This Samanadhikaranya is the number one strength of Advaitins everywhere. Whenever we do Vakyanusandhana, Mahavakyartha Vichara, or anything like that, this Samanadhikaranya between Brahman and the Jiva is what we look for all the time. And then, of course, we need to think about the meaning of this fourth pada. Who is it that we are doing namaskaram to? Obviously, Bhagavad Pada puts a lot of tattva into a seemingly simple line. Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namayidam Shri Dakshina Murtaye. Idan Namaha. This namaskara that I'm doing. The same way we say Seyannatihi or Idan Namaha. Say Ayan Iyannatihi. Same thing. Idan Namaha. This namaskara, who is it directed to? Tasmai. To him. So you can take it as Tattva Vachya, but as we said, we need the Sarvanama there to be connected to the Yat before. So Tasmai Namaskaram to him who is Shri Guru Murtaye, who is of the form of the Guru or who is a Guru. Dakshinamurtaye, Shri Dakshinamurtaye, to the Devata that is known as Dakshinamurti. Why is he called Dakshinamurti? Because he faces south. This Devata, Dakshinamurti faces south, sits under a Vatavriksha and faces south. He faces south because he looks death in the face. As Mrityunjaya, he has conquered Mrityu. And generally we say, right, we do not face south when we do any Shubhakarya because that is Yama's dik. So even in Sundarakanda, before Hanuman jumps the ocean, he does not do Namaskara facing south, even though his work lies in the southern direction. He does not face south. He turns to the east and then he says, Asuryaya Mahendraya Pavanaya Swayam Bhuve Bhutebhyashchanjalam Kritva Chakaragamane Matim. There Valmiki Maharshi says. He turns east, then does Namaskara to the Panchabhutas, to his father Vayu, and then he turns back south and then jumps across the ocean. In the same way, here also, or I guess not in the same way, Dakshinamurti is facing south because Mrityu Bhaya only exists to those who have Ajnana. उदरमन्तरं कुरुते अथ तस्य भयं भवति तत्त्वेव भयं विदुषो मन्वानस्य. Right? Only when you make an antara, only when you see bheda, you have fear of death and all that. And on top of that, Dakshinamurti is Paramatma. Right? Kathopanishad refers to Paramatma as Mrityur Yasyopasechanam. Paramatma swallows this entire world in Pralaya. When he swallows this world in Pralaya, see, when we have some chapati or dosa or something, you need some side dish. So some kura or some chutney or something you need on the side. So when Bhagavan swallows the entire world, when Ishvara swallows the entire world in Pralaya, what is the side dish? Mrityuhu. Mrityur. Death itself he swallows as the side dish. So that is Bhagavan's vibhuti. So he does not really, he transcends death. He exists beyond death. Mrityurdhavati panchamayati bheshasmat. Death stalks the earth upon his orders. So obviously death will not touch him. He is Mrityu Mrityu, Kala Kala. There are any number of names that you can assign to him. So because he has transcended death, he is the Amrita Svabhava, Amrita Swarupa. He faces the south. So this is just the sthula form of Dakshinamurti. Now, let us take another look from the Advaitic, the pure Tattva Advaitic standpoint. Tasmai, as you said, Tatpadavachyaya, Shri Guru Murtaye, not just one that appears as the Guru, but Shri means Satchidanandatmika, Gurvi, Murtihi Swarupam Yasya. So Shri means, Murti means one's form, one's nature, right? One's Akriti. So what is his Akriti? Shri. Shri means anything that is auspicious, Kalyanam, Mangalam, all of this is Shri. So Shri means Satchidanandatmika, that which is of the nature. He whose form is of the nature of Satchidananda, and also Gurvi Murtihi, one whose form is also very large, right? Bhufpadaha, Bhufpado, Yasya Nabhirvyat, Asurani Anilaha, Chandrasuryo cha Netre, Karnavasa Shirodyohu, Mukhamapi Dahanaha, Yasya Vasteyam Abdhihi. Right? We say, whether it is for Vishnu or for Shiva, the same thing follows. So, his feet are beyond Patala. Yeah, why we can do Shiva also. Apatala Nabhasthalanta Bhavana Brahmandamavis Jyotisphatika Lingamoli Vilasat Purnenduvantamrati. Right? We say Apatala Nabhasthalanta Bhavana Brahmandamavis his form shines, this Mahalinga shines from Patala all the way up to the tip of the top of the sky. And even Atyatishta Dashangulam, he exists beyond the top of the sky, 10 fingers past that. So that's such a massive form he has because he encompasses the world. Sarvam samapnoshi tatosi sarvaha. Arjuna says in Gita, you exist as everything and filling everything, completing everything, taking everything into you. So that is the reason why his form is also Gurvi Murti. He has a very large form. And then also Shri Guru Murtaye, so one whose form is Sachidanandatmika and also very large, as well as Shri Dakshinamurtaye. Now, whenever we generally have a Devata and a Stri Devata, that Stri Devata is always the Shakti. So, what is the Shakti of Parabrahman Maya? So, Shri here refers to Maya. So, Maya, Anadi Maya, right? Maya is also Anadi. So, Shri Dakshinaha Nama Samarthaha. Dakshina means Samartha, one who is capable, one who has the capacity to do something. Capacity to do what? Srishti Sthiti Laya. One who is capable of doing Srishti Sthiti Laya. Why is he capable of doing Srishti Sthiti Laya? Because he has Shri. Shriya Dakshinaha, Shri Dakshinaha. One who is capable due to Shri. With Maya, having taken upon the strength of Maya, Bhagavan does Srishti Sthiti Laya. Because otherwise he is Satchidanandatmaka. There is no second, there is nothing else for him to do. But relying on his own force of Maya, he does Srishti Sthiti Laya of these prapanchas and thereby makes a world, creates it, sustains it, destroys it, puts it back into himself, regenerates it. All of this play he does, having taken Maya as his Shakti. So Shriya Dakshina, one who is capable with the force of Maya is Shri Dakshinaha. But then what is his form? Amurti. He is actually formless. He is Nirguna, Nirakara, Niranjana. Right? Upanishad says Asthulam, Ananu. He is not fat, he is not thin, he has no form. Right? So therefore, Shri Dakshinamurti, Shri Dakshina Amurti. Right? Generally Dakshinamurti means he whose Murti faces the Dakshina Disha. So one whose murti, one whose form faces the southern direction. But here now in this reading of it, we have Shri Dakshina Amurti, Shriya Dakshinascha Amurtishcha, Shri Dakshina Murti, one who is capable due to Maya, capable of doing Srishti Sthitalaya due to Maya, and also he who is Amurti, whose true nature is without form. So this is the Dakshinamurti that we are praying to in this stotra. And then we need to say one more thing. Then what is this namaha that we are doing? What is this namaskara that we are doing? This namaskaraha, nama prahvi bhavaha. Prahvi bhava means the act of bending. Prahva means to bend. We bend ourselves in front of whoever it is that we do namaskar in front of, right? We do not walk up to some our parents or to an acharya or to a temple like this and say namaste, right? We bend forward respectfully. Kinchid namitaha, namitaha. We say we do namaskara. So the word actually namana itself means to bow. The word namaskara, namaha, all these things that we derive, the dhatu, the nam dhatu that we derive all these words from, means to bend, right? So when we say namaha, it means prahvibhava. We bend ourselves, we prostrate ourselves, we lay ourselves in front of whoever it is that we are doing namaskaram to. But obviously, to Paramatma, when we are saying that there is no murti, what are you bending to? If you see Acharya in front of you, if you see your parents in front of you, if you see a vigraha in front of you, sure, you can bend in front of it, you can bend to it. परन्तु अत्र कमुद्देश्य नमनं क्रियते कमुद्देश्य नमनं क्रियते or to having whom in mind are you doing, are you bending? So obviously bending here cannot take it to be, but this namaskara means prahvibhava means samarpana parameshware ekatvena sviya samarpanam is what the vyakya says there. So parameshware जीव एकत्वेन स्वीय समर्पणम क्रियते. You're offering your jiva-ness into Paramatma. So right until now, right, we have the feeling I am jiva, I am separate from Paramatma. Paramatma is larger than me and is doing srishti sthiti laya. I am a piece in his play. I am limited by my mind and body. So all of these limitations we have, all of these limitations that we feel, our identity as the jiva, we cast off, we cast away, we cast those identities away and offer ourselves to Ishvara as one. We become one with Ishvara. The way when you pour water into a larger body of water, the way that the water merges and becomes one, in the same way, we offer our identity into the nature of Ishvara, thereby giving us Jiva Brahmaikya and thus moksha. That is the meaning. Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Nama Idam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. I offer myself and thereby attain unity with that Parameshwara whose form is Sachidananda and encompasses this entire world, and who in nature, in truth, has no form, but yet performs Srishti Sthiti Laya accompanied by the force of Maya. So that is the meaning of Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namayidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. Now, obviously, as I said, there is no way that we will cover all 10 shlokas completely. But we can do one of two things. I can either talk about one shloka thoroughly and let the other 9 go, or I can talk about what each shloka talks about very succinctly. So what we will end up doing is I will talk about what each shloka is conveying, and then depending on time, we can look at one shloka in a bit more in detail. So the first shloka we have is Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagariyatulyam Nijantargatam Pashyan Atmani Mayaya Bahirivodbhutam Yatha Nidraya Yas Sakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye Swatma Namevadvayam Tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. So here what we are seeing is Ishwarasya Sakala Jagadadhishthanatvam is what is being shown. The fact that Ishvara or the Jiva is the Adhishthana, the foundation of this entire world, of this entire cosmos. So what are they saying here? This entire world is like a Nagara that is being seen in a mirror, right? So although a nagara is very large, very big, very voluminous, right? You have streets, you have buildings, you have pagodas, you have agoras, you have bazaars, you have houses, you have schools, you have, I don't know, fire stations, police stations. A city is very vast, but it fits, that entire expanse of that city exists within the mirror. And in that same way, Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam. Because what is the Samana Dharma there? Nijantargatam. It exists inside the Darpana. But Atmani, it also exists within the Atma. But then why are you seeing it outside? Bahirivodbhutam. It exists outside Mayaya, due to the force of Maya. Is there any example that this has happened before? Yatha nidraya. Just as when we are asleep, right? The dream takes place within us. The sapna takes place within us. But yet we experience the dream as though things happen outside of us, right? We meet our friend, we go to some place, we are chased by some tiger, we meet some parent, we read some book, we eat something, we interact with everything in the dream as though it were outside of us. But obviously, in reality, the dream exists only within us. So that is a drishtanta, yatha nidraya. But then, is there any way that I can realize that all of this is inside me? Yes, sakshat kurute prabodha samaye svatmanamevadvayam. Yaha प्रबोधसमये advayam svatmanameva sakshat karoti. This prabodha samaya is very beautiful because bodha can mean both teaching as well as waking up. So just as a dream, when you wake up, you realize that everything was within you. In the same way, when bodha happens, when the teacher teaches, when the teacher instructs, you take that to heart, do shravana, manana, nididhyasana, and you realize in that prabodha samaya, then what is it that you realize? Swatmanamevadvayam sakshat kurute. You realize that everything was your atma only, was your own true nature. And that is advaya, it is without second. The jagat is not separate from the atma. The jagat is a manifestation of the atma. It is a outward projection of the atma. So that is the how Ishvara or the Jiva becomes the adhisthana, the adhikarana, the foundation for this jagat. So in the first shloka, Ishvarasya sarva jagat adhishthatritvam, or the sakala jagat adhishthanatvam vyakhyatam. Dvitiya shloka, in the second shloka, बीजस्यान्तरे अङ्कुरो जगदिदं प्राङ् निर्विकल्पं पुनर्माया कल्पितदेशकालकलना वैचित्र्यचित्रीकृतं मायावीव विजृम्भयत्यपि महायोगीव यस्वेच्छया तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नम इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये. So this in this shloka, Ishwarasya Jagat Karanatvam Vyakhyatam. So how is Ishvara the Karana for this Jagat, right? Because there can be no other Karana uh, other than Ishvara, right? The first Brahma Sutra, as soon as we figure out that Brahman needs to be known for moksha to happen, Athato Brahma Jignasa. So in the Jignasa Adhikarana, the Nirniti is that in order for avidya to go away and in order for moksha to be attained, in order for moksha to be attained, jnana is must be gotten. We do not have jnana right now, we have ajnana due to adhyasa. So therefore we need to know Brahman to get jnana, to get moksha, or we need to get jnana to know Brahman to get moksha, is the tatvarya of the first sutra. As soon as that is there, then how do you know Brahman? Janmadhyasya yataha, जन्मादि अस्य यतः. So asya, this asya jagatah janmaadi सृष्टिस्थितिलयादिकं यतः यस्मात् कारणात्, or yasmat kriyate. So he who that what is that Brahman? That Brahman is that from which or due to which the srishti sthiti laya of the jagat happen, or that from which the jagat is born, that in which the jagat exists, and that into which the jagat merges again. Right? So that is the first lakshana that Badarayana Maharshi himself gives us in the sutras. So we need to understand how Brahman becomes the Jagat Karana. So when we think about that, what is the upamana that Bhagavad Pada has given us here now? Birasyantari vankuraha. Just as the ankura, the sprout exists within the bija, within the seed, in the same way, this Jagadam Prang Nirvikalpam Purar Maya Kalpita Deshakala Kalana Vaichitri Kritam Maya Viva Vijrumbhayati Maya Viva Vijrumbhayati Mahayogiva Yasvechaya. So he makes this world sprout forth as an Ankura sprouts from a Bija. Now, why this example? The Jagat is Vaichitra Chitri Kritam. Right? Chitra means variegated, varied. So, Vaichitrikritam. It is extremely variegated, right? There are panchabhutas. There are so many types of jivas. Even within jivas, you have udbhijja, svedaja. You have different types of jivas. Some that are born from sweat, some that are andaja, some that are born from eggs. You have some that are udbhijja, some that break the ground and sprout forth. You have some that are that are born from the womb. So there are so many types of jivas, so many types of bhutas. You have panchabhutas, you have those mixing in different quantities. Again, there are so many different variations in this jagat that we can see. So where did all of this come from? Is it possible for such varied things to come from only one source? Yes. The obvious example is a tree, right? So a tree has a trunk, leaves, branches, bark, water inside, all of the chlorophyll in the leaves, and then if you give it some more time, the leaves will become fruits, the leaves will become flowers, flowers will become fruits will fall again. So in all of this, there is so much variety in the tree, but yet it all came from one seed, right? So that is the drishtanta that is given here. Okay, this is all fine. So with the in the case of the tree, you needed water and sunlight and what is it, oxygen and mud and all that. You need all these things for the for the tree to sprout forth. So what is making the jagat? Okay, I agree. The jagat is an avyakta state before and becomes vyakta. Sure, agreed. Upajnatam. But then, how is it coming forth? Then he says, Mayaviva vijrambhayatyapi mahayogiva yasvechaya. As a magician, as a yogi, makes something appear out of what looks to be nothing. In the same way, that Paramatma who makes this Jagat come forth, to that Dakshinamurti I do Namaskara. Two examples here, both that do Maya, right? Mayavi, if you look at a magician, right, he will put his hand into the hat and pull out a rabbit, right? So to us, it looks like the rabbit came out of nowhere. In the same way, a yogi, right? A yogi, if you have some siddhis, right? If you have prapti or prakami or something, you will do this and you will get bhasma or something and they will put it in your hand or they will do something like that. So these siddha yogis also will do the same thing. So why did these two examples be given? Why were these two examples given? So the Mayavi, what does he do? He first of all he confuses the people that are watching, and number two, he makes something appear as though out of nothing. But the Mayavi actually has tricks, right? The Mayavi cannot make a rabbit appear out of nothing, right? He has to have some trick inside in the hat for the rabbit to come out. So the Mayavi is making something that is avyakta, unmanifest, manifest to us. And but the thing is, Mayavi is also a very low example for the scale that Paramatma is doing it at. So, and also the Mayavi needs Bahya sadhanas. He needs outer implements. So, to show us that is not the case, he says Mahayogi. So, the yogi has nothing outside of himself. The yogi just sits there, closes his eyes, and he will do whatever he does. And also, if we say yoga rather than Maya, it kind of a bit more lofty, a step up. So, which is why Mayaviva Vijrambhayatyapi Mahayogiva Yaha Swechaya Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye is the second shloka. Then the third shloka, Yasyeva Spuranam Sadatmakam Asatkalparthagam Bhasate Sakshat Tamaseti Vedavachasa Yo Bodhayatyashritan Yas Sakshat Karanat Bhavenna Punaravrittir Bhavam Bhonidho Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. So in this you have Asadvada Nirakriya. So if you're saying that the Jagat is like Maya, does that mean that it is Asat, right? If you say that like a Mayavi, right? A Mayavi makes an illusion, right? Does that mean that the Jagat is also an illusion? It is not real. A biggest thing to this day that people harp on in Advaita is you say the Jagat is not real. How is it not real? The Jagat is not real. How is it not real? Who said the Jagat is not real? Nowhere in Advaita does it say that the Jagat is not real. It says that the Jagat is not absolutely real. We do not give the Jagat Paramarthika Satta. You do not say it is because you yourself are seeing, right? This chair is a part of the Jagat. 2 days later, someone breaks it. Where did your chair go? Forget about the chair. You yourself, right? You consider yourself part of this Jagat. You are part of this cosmos. Give yourself 100 years. Where will you be? All the people that you consider part of the world that you interact with, give them 100 years. Where will they go? So it is very obvious to us that the Jagat is not permanent. The question is, what kind of reality do you assign it? Is it absolute or is it a temporary reality? So we give it the Vyavaharika Satta, the transactional reality is the reality that we assigned to the Jagat. So this Jagat is not Asat. This Jagat is not like a Shashashringa, like the horn of a rabbit, or a Vandhyaputra, like the son of a barren woman. This Jagat has some reality to it. But then where does it get its reality from? Obviously from Brahman itself, which is why Yasyeva Sphuranam Sadatmakam Asat Kalparthagam Bhasate. So Yasya Sphuranam Sadatmakam. Spurana is Chit, Sadatmaka is Sat. So Yasya Satta, one who is Satness, he who is Satness, appears as though Asat Kalparthagam. So Asat Kalpa Arthagam, Asat Kalparthatvena Gamyate, Buddhyate. Ek atyarthakaha te jnanarthakaha. So when we have gum in the end, we need to make it understood as that which is known as. So one whose satta, one whose sat nature is understood or is seen as though it were asat kalpartha. And artha, I think that is asat kalpa, as if it were asat. Right? So that is one whose satta is seen as asat. So whatever satta we see in this world belongs to that of Brahman. And it is that Brahman satta that exists in the satta of everything in this prapancha. And what is he doing? He is teaching. Sakshat tattvamasi iti veda vachasa yo bodhayatyashritan. He teaches everyone their true nature through the Mahavakya Sakshat tattvamasi. Right? Sakshat means aparokshataya. There are two ways of knowing Brahman. You can have paroksha jnana and aparoksha jnana. Paroksha jnana means, you can sit down, you can draw them a chart, you can give upanyasas, pravachanas, shastras, goshtis. You can sit and explain the theoretical part out of Brahman to the last straw possible. You can establish Brahman, argue for Brahman, prove Brahman, do all those things academically. This is all still paroksha. But if you have aparoksha jnana, it means you not only can prove Brahman, but you know Brahman and you experience Brahman. So that is the aparoksha jnana, and quite frankly, that is what gives moksha. The paroksha jnana is not to be looked upon lightly. The shastra jnana and all that is not a useless attempt. It helps a lot. It helps a lot when one is doing, when one is trying to get aparoksha jnana by doing sadhana. So that is what is being shown by Sakshat. And then what is he doing? Ashritan, those who seek refuge in him. Tattvamasi vachasa bodhayati. He teaches those that seek refuge in him with the simple phrase Tattvamasi. The Samaveda, Chandogya Upanishad, Samaveda, the Mahavakya. The Samaveda's Mahavakya is Sakshat Tattvamasi iti. Tattvamasi. Tat Paramatma. Svam Jivaha Asi. So you do the Lakshana here. That Paramatma Jiva, you do the whole Prakriya, and in the end, by the time you finish doing Mahavakyartha Vichara of Tattvamasi and you bring it to fraction, you will have Aparoksha Jnana of Brahman. So in the four Mahavakyas, there are different Vakyas. Right? So, for example, Aham Brahmasmi is called an Anubhava Vakya. I am Brahman talks about the nature of Brahman from the individual's Anubhava's standpoint, from the standpoint of the experience of the individual. Then this Tattvamasi is called the Upadesha Vakya. So you are that. No one will ever talk about themselves and say you are that, you are that. No. The Guru says that to the student. The Guru tells the student, come sit, look, this is Brahman. You are that. Sadeva Somya Idamagra Asid Ekameva Dvitiyam. Oh my child, oh my dear one. This Brahman was Sat. It was Sadeva. It was Sat alone. And from that, Tejas came, up came, Anna came, Prithvi came. From that, this entire Prapancha came. Tat Tvamasi Shvetaketu. Oh, my child, you are that. Right? So, this is the Upadesha Vakya, how the teacher teaches it. So, in this, they have shown two things. One, that the Jagat is not Asat, but only appears as though it is Asat. The Satta of the Jagat is actually that Satta of the Paramatma. The Jagat derives its existence from Paramatma. It is Paramatma's Satta that is shining as the Jagat. And then you also have the fact that he is teaching those that seek refuge in him, students, Sharanagatas, through the phrase through the Mahavakya Sakshat Tattvamasi. So this is the third shloka. Then the fourth shloka is a it talks about this more, right? But then I am seeing the Jagat. How do I see this Jagat? How is this Jagat shining to me? Atma Mulako Jagataha Satta Prakasho. The Satta and Prakasha of the Jagat, the Sat and Chit aspects of the Jagat are all Atma Mulakau. They are both Atma Mulakau. They are based on the Atma. They rely on the Atma for their Vyavahara. So, with this aspect in mind, Bhagavad Pada puts the fourth shloka, Nana Chidra Ghatodharasthita Mahadeepa Prabha Bhaswaram Jnanam Yasya tu Chakshuradi Karanadvara Bahispannate Janami Tameva Bhantam Anubhatyetat Samastam Jagat Tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. Another upamana is given here. Like the light in a pot that has holes in it goes out. Right? So here's what we need to think. There is a pot, there is a light inside, and the light goes out through holes. In the same way, the light of Chaitanya exists within the body. Chakshuradi Karanadvara, Karananama Indriyam. So the Indriya is the hole through which the Chaitanya goes out. There it forms the Vritti Pratiphalana happens, and it comes back. All of that, the Prakriya is told there. But that whose Jnana Sarupa goes through the Indriya to see the Vishaya and come back. Jnanam yasya chakshuradi karanadvara bahihi spandate. Spandate nama gacchati. Bahihi gacchati. It goes out. And then mahispandate. And then also janami tameva bhantam anubhati. This jagat anubhati means its bhana, the jagat bhana is dependent on the bhana of the atma. So only if the atma prakasha is there, the Jagat Prakasha will be there, right? Tasya bhasa sarvamidam vibhati is what Upanishad says. Yadaditya gatam tejo jagat bhasayate akhilam yachandramasi yachagna tattejo vidyamamakam is what Smriti says. The Gita, the Smriti Prasthana says. So, in the same way, he, following whom following whose bhasa this entire world shines. Bhasa means not shining in the sense of shedding light, like vidyate, the to be known, right? So because of whose existence this entire world is also seen as existing. To that Dakshinamurti I do namaskara. So now we have brought up we have been talking about one point, that this Atma is inside, right? The Atma is located inside the body, or the Atma's locus is more so inside the body, and there is jnana going out through the chakshu and all that. So now the question becomes, I am the Atma, then what is the Atma? So then Bhagavad Pada very beautifully presents several of these viewpoints within one. So you have Dehatmavada, Indriyatmavada, Kshanika Vijnanavada, Shunyavada, all of these things. So you have Deham, Pranam, Api Indriyanyapi, Chalam Buddhincha, Shunyam Vidustri Balandha Jadopamastvam Ahamiti Bhrantaha, Prashamvadinaha, Maya शक्तिविलासकल्पितमहाव्यामोहसंहारिणे तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये. Right? So what are the different pakshas? Deham. Some people say that the deha is atma. Some people say that pranam. Some people say that the prana is atma. Api indriyani. Some people say that the indriyas are atma. Chalam buddhim. The Buddhas say that kshanika vijnana is atma. And then shunyam. Some other Buddhas say that there is atma is shunya. There is nothing. These people are maya. Bhrantaha. These people are have Bhranta. Bhranta nama Brahmavantaha. Brahma is aprakara. Atadvati tatprakaraka jnana. Ayathartha jnana is Brahma. So these people are all mistaken. Why are they mistaken? Because of Maya. Maya Shakti Vilasa Kalpita Mahavyamoha Samharine. So that Dakshinamurti, what does he do? These people are all deluded thinking that this Dakshinamurti removes this Vyamoha, removes this delusion that is born of Maya's Vilasa due to the play of Maya. But why are these people deluded like this? Why do they think that the Deha is Atma? Because people say, Tishthami, Gachhami, Upavishami, I stand, I go, I sit. In all of these, what is the I referring to? It is not the Manas that is sitting. The Manas is not going, the Deha is going. So because you say I stand, I sit, I sleep, all of that, the I must refer to, the Atma must be the Deha. Other people say no. People say Aham Pashyami, Shrunomi, Jighami, all of this rasangranhami, all of these vyavahar sprishami, all of these are there. I touch, I feel, I smell, I taste. So in all of these, it is the indriya that is doing the work. The vag indriya, the tvag indriya, the chakshar indriya, shrotra indriya. All of these indriyas are doing the work, and you're saying I hear, I smell, I touch. Therefore, here the I refers to the indriyas. So deham pranam. Pranam is in the middle. So when you have say I am hungry, I am thirsty, all of these are the prana dharmas. Ashana pipasas are what they are called. These are all prana dharmas. So when you say I am hungry, I am thirsty, it looks like it is the prana that is hungry or thirsty or something of the sort. That is not the case. It is the Atma. So this is another people's Bhranti. Chalam Buddhim. So the Chalam Buddhim is meant to be Kshanika Vijnana, Kshanavasthaya Vijnanam. So the way that this Prakriya works is, so for us, Jnana is Nitya, right? The Jnana Sarup of the Atma is Nitya. For this, what happens is, for every Kshana, an Atma is born, another Atma is dies, and another Atma is born anew. And that Kshana Vijnana is the Atma, and that uninterrupted flow is the individual's existence. So this is the Bodha Prakriya. Obviously, it sounds laughable on first glance, but obviously it is a Siddhanta. The Bodhas have their own logical prakriyas to prove it and all, but it is a Siddhanta that is wrong nonetheless. So Chalam Buddhim Kshanika Vijnana Samipana. Other people say Shunya, right? When you sleep, when you go into Sushupti, what is there? Nothing is there. So because nothing is there, Atma is Shunya. So some people think that this Atma is Shunya. There is no such thing as an Atma. There is nothing but a void, is what other people say. So all these people are Bhrantas. So now we get a question, the next question. So the way that these shlokas flow from one to the other is what I'm trying to show here. Now what have we done? We have said Deha, no, not Deha, Prana, no, not Prana, Indriyas, no, not Indriyas. The Kshanika Vijnana, no, not Kshanika Vijnana, Shunya. Why? Because in Sushupti there is nothing. So now the question becomes, you are saying that also is wrong and that Atma is there in Sushupti also. So how can you say that Atma is there in Sushupti? Sushuptavapi Atmanaha sadbhava kathamuchyate. How can you say that Atma exists even in Sushupti? Then you have Rahugrasta Divakarendra Sadrisho Maya Samachhadanat Sanmatra Karanopasamharanatah Yobhut Sushuptah Puman. So you say, yes, there is someone. You do not know him because Rahugrasta Divakarendu Sadrishaha. Here, what is the Drishtanta? Like the moon that is swallowed by the penumbral shadow, by the ecliptic shadow. Like the moon that is swallowed by the eclipse. He is Sanmatra Karanopasamharanataha. Because there are no Karanas that grasp the Atma Sadbhava. So when you are awake, you have a buddhi, the manas is still working. Through the manas you can say, okay, now I am saying. Through the manas you can say, okay, now I am eating. Even in sapna avastha you can say, okay, now I am having a dream. Okay, now I am seeing in the dream. Okay, now I am sleeping in the dream. But in sushupti, the manas also has become quelled. The manas also is not moving. So because karana upasamharanataha, all karanas, all indriyas, the bahyendriyas, the hand, the leg, all of those have had upasamharana. They have been pulled back in, and also the antahkarana, right? That also is a karana. The antarindriya also has been pulled back. So yobhut sushupta puman, thus he has become sushupta. So just as the moon, although still existing, is just swallowed by the shadow. In the same way, the atma, though still shining with existence, is just not as evidently shown by because the indriyas are all have all undergone upasamharana. Okay, that is fine. But then how do you know that it is still there, right? You are saying that the Indriyas do not know that the Atma is there. Then how are you able to say that the Atma is there? Pragaswapsamiti prabodhasamaye yaf pratyabhijnayate. That Atma then, once he wakes up, I have slept, I have undergone sushupti. There is a recollection, right? So you can only recollect something that you yourself have done. Right. For example, if my friend goes to school and back and I do not go to school that day, I cannot recall the lessons of that day because I have not experienced it. So because I am waking up from Sushupti and saying, I have slept well. I am saying that I have slept well. So whoever was experiencing something during the sleep and whoever woke up must be the same person, number one. And also if someone is saying, if I'm saying that, it must mean that there is someone there when Sushupti was taking place. So therefore, Pragaswapsam, I have slept iti anijeppi, tatha, in this way. Prabodha samaye yaf pratyabhijnayate. Pratyabhijna means recollection. So he is recognized, literally recognized. He is cognized in Sushupti. Once you wake up, he is recognized. You understand that, oh, okay, this is the person or the thing that is there during Sushupti. That padartha that was underwent the sukhanubhuti of Sushupti and then woke up and then realized that, yes, I underwent sukha and Sushupti. That is Dakshinamurti. To that Dakshinamurti, to that Atmadartha, that is Dakshinamurti, I do namaskara. And then the question becomes, okay, this is one thing, but then why is there uh, you know why is there so much confusion? Why don't we just say that there is one thing? No, balyadishvapi jagradadishitha sarvasavastha savivyavritta svanuvartamanam ahamityanta spurantam sada. So sure, you can say that this is there, but how do you divide Atma and Anatma? How do you distinguish between them? It is very simple. Vyavrittasu anuvartamanam ahamiti antas sada spurantam. When things are changing, that thing that does not change is always there is aham inside. For example, balyadishvapi. So balyadisha means balya, yauvana, vardhakya. There is several praudha, vardhak, yauvana. There are several stages of the body, right? There is childhood, there is youth, there is the stage of life where you are in your full health, and there is old age. So in all of these times, although the body is changing, the feeling of aham, I is not changing. The little child feels just as much I-ness towards himself as the old man feels I-ness towards himself. And not just that, the same individual feels the same I-ness when he was a child as he does when he is an old man. So in the balyadi avasthas, the aham is not changing. In the same way, jagradadishu tatha sarvastavastha. So in Jagrad Avastha, right, you're feeling aham. In Sapna Avastha, you're feeling aham, right? You're feeling I am running from the tiger. I saw my friend in the dream also, it is I that is doing everything. And then also in Sushupti, as we just said, right? You wake up and you say, I was sleeping, I underwent Sushupti. So in all of these things, that one thing, although the avasthas are changing, Although the states of the body are changing, although the body itself is changing, sometimes it is lighter colored, sometimes you go into the sun and it becomes burnt, sometimes you eat a lot of food and it becomes fat, sometimes you starve yourself and it becomes thin, right? Sometimes you go to the gym, it becomes muscular, sometimes you get ill, it becomes weak and lean, right? So all of these things happen, these changes happen to the body, but the atma, the feeling of I-ness, aham, 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 I, that throb inside of I-ness is not changing. So that which is not changing amidst all these changing things is atma. That is Dakshinamurti. To that Dakshinamurti I do namaskara. And then they say everything is atma. Why is there so much difference in the world? No, vyavahara also must be maintained, which is why then you have Vishwam Pashyate Karyakaranataya Swaswami Sambandhatah Shishyacharya Tatheva Pitruputradhyatmana Bhedatah. Right? Sapne Jagritivaya Esha Purusho Maya Paribhramitas Tasme Shri Guru Murtaye Namedam Shri Dakshinamurti. There are several relationships in this world that cause the Vyavahara to go on. Karya Karana Bhava is there. In the same way, Swaswavi Sambandha is there. Mine, there is an owner and a thing that is owned. There is a cause and an effect. In the same way, Shishyacharya, there is a teacher and a taught. There is a Pita and Putra. There is a father and a son. In all of these, Atmana Bhedatah, the Atma itself is undergoing all of these Bhedas. Why? Swapne Jagritivaya Esha Purusha Maya Paribhramita. All these Bhedas only exist in Swapnavastha and Jagratavastha. In Sushuptyavastha, there is no Bheda because only the Atma exists. But in these two, why these differences are coming up is because Maya Paribhramitaha, he is literally made to move around. This Purusha is made to move around with all of these different relationships and all of these different connections due to the force of Maya. So that Purusha, that though being one, is being displayed through all of these different sambandhas and connections to that Purusha, to that Atma, to that Dakshinamurti, Namaskara. So with this, Atma Tattva has been Vyakhyata. Atma Tattva has been thoroughly described through these 8 shlokas. What the last 2 shlokas do is the ninth shloka, Bhuram Hamsan Anolombara, talks about the Upasana. So one of the means to knowing this Atma is to do Ishvara Upasana, right? Doing worship of Ishvara, and that to Ishvara in such a way that is conducive to Jnana. So because this is Dakshinamurti, there is one particular Upasana particular to Shiva that is very conducive to this Jnana. That is called Ashtamurti Upasana. So Shiva has 8 murtis, the Panchabhuta, Surya, Chandra, and the Yajamana, the Jiva, which is why he says Bhuhu, Bhumi, Ambhamsi, water, Analaha, fire, Anilaha, the Vayu, Athakashaha, Bhurambhamsi, Nalo, Nila, Ambara. Ambara is Akasha. Bhurambhamsi, Nalo, Nilambara, Aharnatha. Aharnatha is Surya, Himamshu is Chandra, Pumam the Yajamana, Ityabhati Characharatmakamidam, Yasyeva Murtyashtakam. So, thus, once he whose 8 forms exist. If you think about it, there is literally nothing else in the world besides this, which is why he says, Nanyat Kinchana Vidyate Vimrshatam Yasmat. There is nothing separate from these 8 forms, right? The world is made up of the Panchabhutas and the Purusha. What more is there to the world? So, if we can meditate upon these Panchabhutas, Surya Chandra, and the Jiva as Ishvara, in the end, what will you realize in the 10th shloka? Sarvatmatvam, it is Phutikritamidam. You will realize that Sarvam, everything is Atma. So, Bhuram Bhamsi Nalo Nilambara Maharnatho Himamshuh Puman Ityabhati Characharatmakamidam Yasyeva Murtyashtakam. This gives us the Upasana Vidhana. How to do Ishvara Upasana? To meditate upon him as being within every single thing of this world, right? Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma Tajjalaniti Shantaha Upasita is what actually Upanishad says. Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma. This entire world is Brahma. Not just that, Tajjalan, Tasmat Jayate. The world is born from that Paramatma, so it is Tajjam. The world attains Laya into that Atma, so it is Tallam. And the world gets its Prana, Tasmat Pranati, Jivati, Tasmat Tadanam. Is also the world lives because of Paramatma, and the Anam becomes because of the Chandasattva. So you have Tajjanta Tallancha Tadanancha Tajjalan iti Shantaha Upasita. Thus, the quiet, calm, restrained sadhaka must meditate upon Brahman. So Upanishad itself tells us this. We apply that to Ishvara through this Ashtamurti Upasana. So the 9th shloka tells us the Upasana Vidhana. The 10th shloka tells us what is in this stotra and how to do Anusandhana of it. So Sarvatmattvamita Sputi Kritamidam Yasmadamushmin Stave. So what is being put forth in this stotra? Sarvam Brahmamayan Jagat. Sarvatmam. Sarvatmatvam. Everything is Atma, which is why, as we said in the beginning, this shows that the Bhokta, that is the Jiva, the Bhogya Jagat, the Bhoga Prada Ishvara, and the Moksha Prada Guru, all of these are one. Sarvam is one, is what is being shown in this stotra. And therefore, Asya Shravana, Asya Stotrasya, Shravana Tadartha Manana Dhyana, by doing Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana of it, and also Sankirtana, by singing it, by praying to Dakshinamurti through this. ध्यानाच संकीर्तनात्, what will you get? Sarvatmatva Mahavibhuti Sahitam Syad Ishwaratvam Swataha. You will become one with Ishvara, and not just one with Ishvara, you also become Sarvatmatva Mahavibhuti Sahitam. And then Siddhyetat Parashtadha Parinatan Chaishwaryam. You will also have the Ashta Siddhis, Ashta Aishwaryas, all of these will come. So basically, Iha Para Bhogas will come through this stotra. In one side, it will give you the bhogas of this world by the grace of Dakshinamurti. If we understand this stotra, if we do anusandhana of this stotra, it will give us Ishwaratvam Swataha. It will give us oneness, Ishwaraikya. We will get the Jiva Brahmaikya, that is the Shruti Shiras Siddhanta, that is the final goal, the final lakshya of all the Upanishads. So, somehow or the other, in 1 hour and change, we have talked about Dakshinamurti Stotra. So as we can see, each shloka conveys some aspect of Brahma Vidya. Each shloka conveys some aspect of Jiva Brahmikya, of how Brahman is this world, or how Brahman created this world, or how Brahman permeated this world, or how the Jiva experiences this world, or why there exists such multiplicity in this world. Bhagavad Pada has put all of this into beautiful, beautiful, concise shlokas in such a way that even if we study the bhashya and the meaning properly, if we just tell the shloka through that one small shloka, this entire expanse of meaning will shine in our head. That is the point of these shlokas. Whenever tattva is explained in shlokas, that is a writer's intent in any shastra. For example, even in Tarka, Muktavali, that Vishwanatha Panchana Bhatta has written the Tarka Siddhanta in shlokas, and then of course he himself has gone on in the Karikavali, and then he himself has gone on in Muktavali to a great length explain the siddhantas that he is putting forth in those shlokas. Why does he do that? Because you need to understand the explanation, and then once you understand the explanation, as soon as you hear the shloka, the entire explanation will shine in your mind. So the shloka is meant to be a shortcut, meaning to retain the shortcut form to retain the entire expanse of meaning that the author wishes to convey. Which is why, even though Bhagavad Pada finished off this Atma Tattva in 8 shlokas, his Pradhana Shishya, or Sharada, Dakshinamnaya Sharada Pithas, Prathamacharya Sureshwaracharya, wrote a great grantha called Manasollasa. Mangalam dishatu me Vinayakah, Mangalam dishatu me Saraswati, Mangalam dishatu me Maheshwari, Mangalam dishatu me Sadashivaha. The Mangalacharana he does. Then he starts, and then in a great vast text, he does a Vyakhyanam, also in shlokas. He writes in shlokas, he does a Vyakhyanam to various aspects, even more, obviously, even more than we have been able to talk about in this last hour. But he does Vyakhyana of Bhagavad Pada's Siddhanta through this Dakshinamurti Stotra. And on top of that, again, there are several Vyakhyas that have come. Several Vyakhyas for Manasollasa, that itself is a Vyakhya for Dakshinamurti Stotra. So, we owe a lot of our eternal gratitude to Bhagavad Pada that has given us such a beautiful Dakshinamurti Stotra. So let us not just chant this Dakshinamurti Stotra, but learn it, understand it, right? Because we said that not just Shravanat and Kirtanat, but also Mananat, Dhyanat. We need to understand what is being said, do dhyana of that, apply that to our daily outlooks. So let us all do that with this Stotra. Let us do the Namaskaram to Dakshinamurti. Let us all do Namaskaram to our Jagat Gurus who are none other than Dakshinamurti. And let us continue our Jnana Sadhana with their grace. Thank you. इत्येषा वाङ्मयी पूजा श्रीमच्छङ्करपादयोरर्पिता तेन देवेशः प्रीयतां मे सदाशिवः।